We've got a few different options when it comes to how we're going to finish the edges. We can leave them square and just butt them up against one another like this. We can round over the edges with something like one of these 1/8 inch or 5/16 round over bits. We could chamfer the edge with something like one of these 22.5 or 45-degree angle chamfer bits. We could also do a chamfer with one of these miniature hand planes. Another option is to do something like this. This is kind of a random angle and depth chamfer. And that's what we're going to do on this flag, and I'm going to teach you a couple ways to do it. Personally, I think the bandsaw is one of the best ways to do this. Another option is to use some sort of angle grinder with one of these flap wheels. Now, I don't like using these for the whole project because they make a real mess, but I do like using them on these little short edges, and I also like using them to clean up my bandsaw cuts. All right, so I want to just take a real quick safety break to talk about grinders. These things can be pretty dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. What you're going to notice I'm doing is I'm using this part of the wheel, not this part. I'm staying away from this here. We call this the kill zone. And the reason it's called that is because it can induce a kickback, much like the way the tip of a chainsaw, if you use the wrong side of it, would induce a kickback. So what I'm doing is I'm using this part of the wheel, and that's actually pulling this away from me, essentially. If I use this part of the wheel, it would be pushing it towards me. So you can see I'm using it here. This is spinning this direction, and it's pulling this grinder away from me. If I use this part here, it's pushing it back, and I don't want that to happen. One of the reasons I like using the bandsaw a lot more than just using an angle grinder to do the whole thing is because this is a lot easier to clean up than all the sawdust that you're going to get from using an angle grinder. All right, so there's a lot of different ways we can knock these stars out. One way that's pretty popular is to use one of these rotary tools. Another method is to use chisels, gouges, and a hammer. And the other option is going to be like a combination of both, and that's actually what we're going to do today. All right, so the hard part is over, and now all we've got to do is glue it together. But if I only had a jig. Oh, there we go. Just kidding. Camera trick. So this is something that I was working on. I was hoping to release the video on this at the same time or just behind the video that you're watching now on this flag build. But I keep coming up with new things that I want to try for it. I'm going to come back to this and finish it up, and I will have a video on this when I get everything figured out. It does have some really cool features on it already. One of the coolest things is these cam clamps. And these just slide into T-track. These are homemade out of scrap wood. And we have approximately 12-inch sections of T-track, so I can get some adjustment here. And it'll work on things like these 19.5-inch tall flags, and then I can do smaller things like cutting boards. Something else that I really like about it, I use 1/4-inch PVC sheet that I glued to a 3/4-inch piece of plywood, so it's still got a lot of strength to it, but that PVC is going to prevent things like glue from sticking to it. So now we're going to flip everything over so that we're working on the back side of this. We're going to glue the edges together, and we're also going to put some backing straps on to add some rigidity to this. Don't make the mistake of not switching these short stripes over to this other side when you flip it over. Also, another very important thing that you don't want to mess up, make sure that your stars are up, and I'm going to go ahead and write top at the top of this so I can't mix it up.